Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Bernell Baker. I am a financial consultant with Alliant Retirement and Investment Services, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day today to join me. Today, we're going to be talking about college planning, and we'll take a look at how much college costs today, kind of some projected costs that we expect for the future, and then we'll also look at some building blocks that kind of go into funding for college education. We'll take a look at different tax advantage ways to save for college, and then we'll also examine the role of financial aid. So here are some of the different websites that we have for Alliant Retirement and Investment Services. We have our complimentary webinars that you can go on here and take a look at the different subjects that we have coming up here and sign up for any one of those. We also have our Invest Savvy podcast that's found on all major podcasting sites like Apple and Google. And then it's also listed on the website that we have here. And then we have the ARIS website and blog just to kind of help you understand who we are as a team and then just to give you more information to become more financially savvy. We all know the benefits of a college education, the ability for your child to set themselves apart in a competitive job market. But we also know that there's a lot of demands competing for your hard-earned money. It costs a lot of money to raise a family. You have either monthly mortgage or rent payments that's due. You also probably have a car payment or two. You can't forget about yourself. You need to start contributing for your own retirement. And if you're anything like me, when I got out of college, I had my own student loans that I had to pay back. And you have to have a vacation now again, just so that you can create memories with your family. You add up all these costs and any bills and unforeseen emergencies, and it's probably hard to imagine just how you're going to fit in savings for college as well. But it's very, very important that you start saving for your child's college fund as soon as possible. So why do you need to start saving for college now? Well, the answer is right in front of us. According to the College Board, the current average cost for 1 year of tuition, fees, room and board at a public college is $24,000, and it's $56,000 at a private college. Now, these figures don't include cost of books, personal expenses, or transportation. If you multiply each figure by 4, you can see how expensive college really is. And we haven't even factored in any college inflation just yet. Over the past 2 decades, college inflation has generally increased more than double the rate of general inflation. This chart shows just how much college might cost in the future if we start with current figures and a college inflation rate of 5%. As you can see, in about 10 years, the cost of 1 year at a public college could be over $39,000, while the cost of 1 year at a private college could be more than $91,000. It's likely college costs will continue to rise each year. Annual increases in the range of 3 to 5% would certainly be in line with historical trends. So, what does this mean for you? College costs will continue to increase, which will just add to the amount that you will need to save. Now, before you throw up your hands in despair at these numbers, I have some good news. And the good news is that the money you save for college will probably play only one part of your child's college education. Think of your college savings as just one block in a block tower. In addition to your college savings, some of your child's education costs may be covered by financial aid, which may include student loans, grants, scholarships, and work study, your income during the college years, other borrowing options such as a home equity loan, creative cost-cutting measures such as having your child attend a community college for 2 years before transferring to a 4-year college, or encouraging your child to choose an accelerated program where they can graduate in 3 years instead of 4, and perhaps gifts from grandparents or other relatives. So even though college costs are high, think of your savings as a down payment on the total cost. A good benchmark is to aim to save at least 50% of your child's projected college costs. This table shows how a college fund can grow over a period of years if you invest a certain amount each month and earn a certain rate of return. The figures here assume an average after-tax return of 6%. If you could save $100 a month for 15 years, you would have almost $30,000 in your child's college fund. The sooner you start saving, the more time your money will have to potentially grow. Now you may be thinking back to the first slide where we looked at all the demands on your hard-earned dollars, and you may be thinking, I can't possibly save $200 or $300 a month. A good plan is to start with whatever amount you can afford and add to it over the years with things like raises, bonuses, tax refunds, and unexpected windfalls. The most important thing is to start saving, even if it's not as much as you would like. You have several college savings options to choose from. Some of the most popular include 529 plans, Coverdell education savings accounts, mutual funds, stocks and exchange traded funds, savings accounts, money market funds, CDs, and Roth IRAs. Even though Roth IRAs are meant for retirement, some parents have found they work pretty well as college savings also. Some of these options are taxable and others aren't, which we'll talk about more in a moment. Before I do, though, I'd like to mention that we aren't going to spend time talking about traditional savings accounts, money market funds, or CDs. That's because these vehicles can be a good place to park your short-term savings, but they probably shouldn't be the core of your long-term saving strategy because their rates of return won't help you keep up with college inflation, and they don't offer any special tax advantages. Instead, we're going to focus on options that do offer some type of federal tax advantage if they're used for college. These include 529 plans, Coverdell education savings accounts, and Roth IRAs. Why the focus on tax advantage strategies? Well, because taxes can take a significant bite out of your college nest egg depending on the type of account you use to save. You should use tax advantage strategies whenever possible. Let's look at an example. This chart shows the impact that taxes can have on your college savings. Let's assume an initial investment of $25,000, a 6% annual return, and a total federal and state tax rate of 28%. The orange line represents a taxable investment, such as a mutual fund held in your name, while the green line is an investment that's completely tax exempt at the federal level, such as a 529 plan. Over 18 years, the initial $25,000 in your mutual fund would have grown to over $53,000, while the same amount in your 529 plan would have grown to over $71,000, a difference of almost $18,000. That's a lot of money for doing nothing other than saving in one account versus another. Now let's talk about 529 plans, one of the most common tax advantage savings options. What is a 529 plan? A 529 plan is a college savings vehicle that offers federal and state tax advantages. A 529 plan can also be used for savings for kindergarten through high school expenses. 529 plans are sponsored by states, but they must follow federal law. Specifically, they must abide by Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code, hence the name 529 plan. 529 plans were created by Congress in 1996, and since that time they have improved the way parents save for college. Just like 401k plans have revolutionized the world of retirement savings. There are actually two types of 529 plans: college savings plans and prepaid tuition plans. With either type of plan, when you open the account, you control the account as the account owner and your child is the beneficiary. So what's the difference? A college savings plan is an individual investment type account similar to a 401k. Every college savings plan offers a number of investments that typically consist of mutual funds, which range from conservative to aggressive. Your contributions are funneled into whatever investment you choose when you open your account. Your returns aren't guaranteed. They will depend on the performance of the investments you've chosen. There are risks that the investments may lose money or not perform well enough to cover the costs of college as anticipated. Nearly every state offers a college savings plan. Some states offer more than one, and you can join any state's plan. At college time, money in the account can be used to pay for tuition, fees, room and board, books, and supplies at any accredited college in the United States or abroad, including graduate school. A 529 prepaid tuition plan is essentially a contract between you and the plan whereby the plan offers to cover a certain amount of in-state public college tuition in the future based on the amount of your contribution today. In effect, you are prepaying tuition at your state's public colleges. Only a handful of states offer prepaid tuition plans, and you are limited to your own state's plan. If your state doesn't have one, you're out of luck. There is one exception. There is currently one active private prepaid tuition plan that is sponsored by a consortium of private colleges. Residents of any state can join that plan, but your child must attend one of the participating colleges. College savings plans are much more common, and the rest of our discussion will focus on these plans. So let's take a look at some of the advantages of college savings plans in more detail. Anyone can open a 529, regardless of income level. And I should mention here that you don't need to be a parent to open a 529. A grandparent, relative, or friend can open an account and contribute money on your child's behalf. Or these people may contribute to a 529 that you have already opened for your child. Also, your child can have more than one 529 opened on their behalf. Second, 529 plans have high lifetime contribution limits, typically $350,000 or higher. Every state sets its own limit. You can contribute as little or as often as you wish. You can set up automatic monthly contributions and put your savings effort on autopilot, or you can contribute lump sums at random intervals. 529 plans also have a unique built-in feature that allows large lump sum tax-free gifts, which I'll talk about more in a moment. Third, as account owner, you maintain control of the funds in the account, not your child. Fourth, as part of their menu of investment options, most plans typically offer age-based portfolios where the underlying investments automatically become more conservative over time as your child gets closer to college age, similar to a target date retirement fund. Finally, the best advantage of 529 plans is the tax benefits. Your contributions accumulate tax deferred, which means you don't pay income tax on your earnings each year. Then, at college time, any earnings in the account are completely tax-free at the federal level and typically at the state level too, when funds are used to pay the beneficiary's qualified education expenses. The result is that 100% of your earnings are staying in your account as part of your college fund instead of going in part to Uncle Sam. This combination of advantages has made 529 plans a very favorable way to save for college. Before we look at the potential disadvantages of 529 plans, I just want to mention something I brought up earlier. The unique feature of 529 plans that allows large lump sum tax-free gifts in the form of accelerated gifting. This can be a favorable way for grandparents to contribute lump sums to their grandchildren's education. So how does it work? Under special rules unique to 529 plans, grandparents or anyone can make large lump sum gifts to the 529 plans of up to 5 times the annual gift tax exclusion amount. In 2025, the annual gift tax exclusion is $19,000. So a lump sum can be made up to $95,000 for individuals or $190,000 for married couples. If the gift is treated as having been made in equal installments over a 5-year period on your tax returns and no other gifts are made to the beneficiary during the 5-year period, then no gift tax is owed. 5 years later, another lump sum gift can be made again in this manner, and so on. Now let's look at some disadvantages of 529 plans. As I mentioned earlier, returns aren't guaranteed. In fact, you could lose money. Second, you give up some investment control when you join a college savings plan because you're limited to the plan's pre-established investment options. If you're unhappy with the performance of the investment options you've chosen, you can change the options on your existing contributions only twice per year. However, you can generally change the investment options on your future contributions at any time. And you only get tax-free earnings if you use the funds for college. If you withdraw money for any reason besides the beneficiary's qualified college expenses, you'll owe income taxes on the earnings part of the withdrawal at your tax rate, plus a 10% federal penalty on the earnings. Finally, there are fees and expenses associated with 529 plans, including investment fees and possibly an annual management fee. Now let's look at another tax-advantaged college savings option, the Coverdell Education Savings Account. This account operates similarly to a 529 plan. A Coverdell Education Savings Account is a tax-advantaged savings account that lets you contribute up to $2,000 per year for your child's elementary, secondary, or college expenses. You open up a Coverdell ESA at a bank or other financial institution. You are the account owner, and your child is a beneficiary. Some institutions may charge a fee for opening and or maintaining the account. Unlike the case with 529 plans, you select the investments you hold in the account. You can choose mutual funds, stocks, bonds, ETFs, and so on. Assets in the account accumulate tax deferred, similar to a 529 plan. And any earnings in your account are completely tax-free at the federal level and typically at the state level when funds are withdrawn to pay the beneficiary's qualified education expenses. And as with a 529 plan, the earnings portion of any withdrawal that isn't used for the beneficiary's qualified education expenses is subject to federal income tax and a 10% penalty. The biggest drawback of a Coverdell Education Savings Account is that the annual $2,000 contribution limit is quite low. However, a Coverdell account might be helpful in combination with other savings strategies. Not everyone can open an account. In 2025, to be able to make the full $2,000 contribution, your modified adjusted gross income must be less than $190,000 if you're married filing jointly and less than $95,000 if you're filing singularly. A partial contribution is allowed if your income is slightly above these levels. Now let's talk about another college savings option that offers federal tax advantages, but whose main purpose isn't saving for college: Roth IRAs. A Roth IRA is a retirement account, but some parents have found that it works pretty well as a college savings tool also. So why is that? Well, with a Roth IRA, once you turn 59 and a half, you can withdraw funds for any purpose: college, retirement, home remodeling, whatever you want, with zero tax implications or penalties. But what if you're younger than 59 and a half? Well, generally there's a 10% early distribution penalty on the earnings portion of any withdrawal made before 59 and a half. But there's an exception for college. If a withdrawal is used to pay a child's college expense, the 10% penalty is waived. However, the earnings portion of the withdrawal will still be subject to income tax. Another advantage of using Roth IRAs as a college funding tool is that retirement accounts in general aren't counted as an asset in federal or college financial aid formulas. This means your retirement balances will have zero impact on your child's potential aid award. However, any withdrawals will still count towards income for financial aid purposes. So for that reason, you might consider waiting until after January 1st of your child's sophomore year to withdraw funds from a Roth IRA, because the government's financial aid application, the FAFSA, relies on income information from 2 years prior and won't pick it up if your child finishes college in 4 years. The maximum amount that can be contributed to a Roth IRA in 2025 is $7,000 with an additional $1,000 catch-up contribution if you're age 50 or older. This amount is higher than a Coverdell Education Savings Account, but much lower than a 529 plan. Keep in mind that this limit is for traditional and Roth IRAs combined. However, not everyone can contribute to a Roth IRA. Your ability to contribute is based on your modified adjusted gross income. In 2025, to make the full contribution, your income must be $146,000 or less as a single filer, or $230,000 or less if you file jointly. A potential contribution is allowed for single filers with incomes between $146,000 and $161,000, and for joint filers with income between $230,000 and $240,000. Of course, using Roth funds for college means you will have less available for retirement. Now, I want to take a minute to talk about mutual funds and stocks. The main benefits are variety and flexibility. There are thousands of funds and stocks to choose from, and the proceeds can be used for any purpose, not just college. In addition, these investments offer the potential for higher rates of return compared to savings or money market accounts. Keep in mind, though, there are no guarantees, and investments that try to achieve higher rates of return also involve a higher degree of risk. So what's the drawback of using mutual funds and stocks to save for college? Bottom line, they don't offer any tax advantage specific to college. Remember the slide we looked at earlier where we compared a taxable investment to a tax-free one? To recap, a $25,000 investment earning a 6% annual rate of return for 18 years would grow to over $53,000 in a taxable mutual fund for someone paying a combined federal and state tax rate of 28% compared to over $71,000 in a tax-free 529 plan, a difference of over $17,000. So even though mutual funds and stocks offer flexibility because they can be used for any purpose, the fact that they offer no tax advantage generally makes them less attractive as a main component of your long-term college savings strategy. Instead, it's usually better to hold these investments within a tax-advantaged account. But remember, all investing involves risk, including the potential of loss of principal. And there's no guarantee that any investment strategy will be successful. Now, let's recap on all the options we've discussed. This table summarizes how the various college savings options stack up against each other on a variety of features. As you can see from the first row, 529 plans, along with mutual funds and stocks, are open to anyone, whereas Coverdell ESAs and Roth IRAs have income restrictions on who can participate. Regarding contribution limits, 529 plans have very high lifetime contribution limits, typically $350,000 or up, while mutual funds and stocks have no contribution limit. By contrast, Coverdell ESAs have a very low $2,000 annual contribution limit, and Roth IRAs have an annual contribution limit of $7,000 or $8,000 if you're age 50 or older. So, which option offers you full investment control? All of them except 529 plans. Remember, with a college savings plan, you have to choose from among the plan's pre-established investment options. And if you're unhappy with the market performance of the investment options you've chosen, you can change the investment options on your existing balance only twice per year. Now let's look at tax-free earnings, which is one of the most important features. 529 plans and Coverdell ESAs offer 100% tax-free earnings if the funds are used for qualified education expenses. While Roth IRAs, it's a bit trickier. Your contributions can always be withdrawn tax-free at any age and for any purpose because they are made with after-tax dollars. But your earnings, as opposed to your contributions, are a different story. If you are 59 and a half or older, the earnings portion of any withdrawal is tax-free. But if you're younger than 59 and a half, the earnings portion of any withdrawal is subject to income tax, even if you use the money for college. It's just the 10% early distribution penalty would then be waived. By contrast, with mutual funds and stocks, you are taxed on the earnings every year. Next up is flexibility. Which options allow you to use the money you've saved for non-education expenses? Well, Roth IRAs are primarily a retirement savings tool, so we know the money can be used for purposes besides college. And of course, mutual funds and stocks can be used for anything too. By contrast, both 529 plans and Coverdell ESAs impose income tax and a 10% tax penalty on the earnings portion of any withdrawal that is not used to pay qualified education expenses. Finally, which investments aren't counted for purposes for financial aid? Only Roth IRAs aren't counted in either the federal or college financial aid formulas. 529 plans, Coverdell ESAs, mutual funds, and stocks are all counted as assets, provided they are owned by the parent. Now let's take all the different things that we've learned here and apply it to a hypothetical situation. We have Heather and Joe. They're both 43 years old, and they have two children, ages 4 and 7. Their combined income is $160,000, and they have just received a $30,000 inheritance, which they plan to use for college. Plus, they would like to start making regular monthly contributions to a college fund. So what college savings options should Heather and Joe consider? Looking at tax-advantaged options, one thing Heather and Joe could do is contribute to a college plan. Let's assume they don't want to limit their children's choice of colleges, so they're interested in a 529 college savings plan and not a prepaid tuition plan. In this case, they could open 2 college saving plan accounts, one for each child. They could allocate some of their $30,000 to each account, and they could also set up automatically monthly contributions that would come directly from their bank account. The investment portfolios they choose for each account will depend on their time horizon and risk tolerance. Heather and Joe will need to periodically monitor the investment performance and make changes if necessary. If they don't want the hassle of periodically changing their investment options as their children get closer to college, they might consider an age-based portfolio for each account, which will take care of this reallocation for them. Heather and Joe might also consider funding one or more Coverdell accounts. Their combined income of $160,000 is below the $190,000 limit for a married couple to make the full $2,000 annual contribution. Let's assume Heather and Joe are interested in buying some stocks they've recently researched. Well, a Coverdell account might be a good umbrella under which to purchase and hold them. Heather and Joe could open 2 Coverdell accounts, one for each child, as an additional complementary strategy to their 529 college savings plan accounts. And instead of making automatically monthly contributions to the Coverdell accounts, Heather and Joe could contribute any unexpected money they happen to receive, such as bonuses, tax refunds, or gifts from their children's grandparents or other relatives. In addition, Heather and Joe might each decide to open a Roth IRA or add funds to an existing Roth IRA, which can do double duty as both a college and retirement account. Heather and Joe's income is below the 2025 contribution threshold of $236,000 for joint filers, so each can contribute the full $7,000 to their Roth accounts. They might even jumpstart the accounts by using a portion of the $30,000 inheritance. Heather and Joe will be 54 when their oldest starts college. If they take money out of their Roth IRA to pay for college expenses that year, the earnings portion of the withdrawal will be subject to income tax because they'll be younger than 59 and a half, but the 10% early distribution penalty will be waived because they're using the money for college. 5 years later, when their youngest child is a college sophomore, they'll be 59 and a half, so they could potentially wait to use their Roth funds at this time to avoid taxes on their earnings. And if it turns out that Heather and Joe don't end up needing the money for colleges or need less funds, then the Roth IRA can be part of their overall retirement savings. As for mutual funds and stocks, Heather and Joe could certainly invest in those too. But because those investments don't offer the same tax advantages as other options, Heather and Joe would be better off holding any mutual funds and stocks in a Coverdell or Roth account rather than in a regular brokerage account. No matter which of the options you choose, the important thing is to start saving as early as you can, with whatever amount you can afford, and add to it when you can. The sooner you start saving, the more time your money will have to potentially grow, and the less you or your child may need to borrow down the road. And speaking of down the road, let's look ahead for a minute to the college years. Remember this slide? It's the building blocks of how you're going to pay for college. The most important part is your savings, which we've talked about at length. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. Come college time, in addition to your savings, some of your children's costs may be covered by the items listed here. Financial aid, income from both you and your child, other borrowing options such as a home equity loan, creative cost-cutting measures such as encouraging your child to graduate in 3 years instead of 4, or become an RA to save on room and board costs. And finally, if you're lucky, maybe gifts from grandparents or other relatives. Even though these potential resources are off in the future, knowing they're out there might help you feel better as you start building your college fund now. I'd like to talk a bit about one of these resources, financial aid. Some parents assume that financial aid will cover a good portion of their child's college costs, but that may or may not be true. Financial aid is a broad term, and one family's definition may not match a college's definition. So it's important to understand exactly what it means. Financial aid is money given to students primarily by the federal government and colleges to help pay for college. This money can take form of loans, grants, scholarships, or work study. Loans must be repaid. By contrast, grants and scholarships do not. In a perfect world, you want to maximize grants and scholarships while minimizing loans. How can you do this? The federal government offers two main grants, the Pell Grant and the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, and you'll probably hear more about them at college time. But these grants are limited to students with the greatest financial need. I'll talk more about how financial need is calculated in a minute. But suffice it to say that not only are these grants limited to those on the lower end of the income scale, they are not that large. For example, the maximum Pell Grant for the 2025 and 2026 school year is $7,395. While this can certainly help, it might still leave a lot of college costs to fund. For larger grant awards, look to individual colleges, where many awards can be in the tens of thousands of dollars. College can award grants on the basis of need or merit. As college costs have soared in recent decades, the upper boundaries of need-based aid have climbed to levels that would have been unimaginable a generation ago, making many upper middle-class families eligible for need-based grants. In the past, kids had to apply to and be accepted at a particular college to find out what their grant award might be. Today, there is a way to get an accurate estimate ahead of time. All colleges are required by the federal government to have a net price calculator on their website, which you can fill out before your child applies. A net price calculator asks for your family's income, assets, and general student information, and then provides an estimate of how much grant aid your child might expect at that particular school. The cost of the school minus this grant aid equals your child's estimated net price, hence the name Net Price Calculator. It's a really valuable tool, and I hope you all take advantage of the net price calculators in the future. Completing one only takes about 10 or 15 minutes, and it's a great way to compare the net price of different colleges. Now, how is your child's financial aid determined? Each year, the federal government looks at your family's income, assets, and personal information that you list on its aid application, the FAFSA. It then runs this information through a formula and calculates your child's financial aid eligibility. Colleges typically do this same analysis using their own formula, which generally digs a bit deeper into your assets. The resulting figure used to be called your expected family contribution, or EFC. But starting with the 2024 and 2025 FAFSA, the expected family contribution will be renamed the Student Aid Index, or SAI, just in case you hear this term. Your income is the biggest factor in determining your financial need. Another important factor used to be the number of children you had in college at the same time. However, starting with the 2024 and 2025 FAFSA, parents with multiple children in college at the same time will no longer be offered a discount in the form of a reduced parent contribution. This change has the potential to significantly increase out-of-pocket costs for middle and upper income families who have more than one child in college at the same time. Your Student Aid Index, or SAI, remains the same no matter what college your child applies to. The difference between your SAI and the cost of a particular college equals your child's financial need. Your child's financial need will be different at every college. After your child is accepted at a particular college, the financial aid administrator at that school will look at your child's financial need and attempt to craft an aid package to meet that need. It can be met with a combination of federal loans, grants, and work study, along with college grants and/or scholarships. Colleges aren't obligated to meet all your child's needs. If they don't, you're responsible for that portion too. Regarding assets, I want to point out that the federal government completely excludes some assets from its financial aid formula, including home equity, all retirement accounts, annuities, and cash value life insurance. Private colleges typically exclude retirement accounts too, but may look at these other assets to get a full idea of your ability to pay. There's an important distinction to note when it comes to retirement accounts though. While the federal government and colleges typically exclude your retirement balances from consideration, contributions you've made in the year prior to the year you submit your aid forms may be treated differently. The federal government used to count them, but starting with the 2024 and 2025 FAFSA, retirement contributions will no longer be factored in. However, some private colleges may expect you to apply some of these contributions towards college expenses. Finally, I want to talk briefly about loans. When you file the FAFSA, your child becomes eligible for certain federal loans. Some of these loans are based on financial need, but one loan, the direct unsubsidized loan, is open to any student regardless of need. All loans have annual borrowing limits, and the student takes out this loan in his or her name and thus is responsible for paying it back. In addition, parents with good credit histories can take out Federal Plus loans for up to the full cost of the student's education. Beyond this, a parent might decide to co-sign on a private student loan with the student as a primary borrower. If you co-sign on a loan and your child can't pay it back after graduation, then you're on the hook. This, of course, is all in the future, but it ties into what we've talked about today and illustrates why your college savings are so important. Students and parents who borrow too much for college can end up with considerable debt that could last for years after graduation. The news is filled with stories of young adults with excessive student loan debt. The key is to save as much as you can before college to limit the amount you might need to borrow. So, bottom line, how much should you rely on financial aid to cover your child's college expenses? The answer is, don't expect it to cover everything or even close to everything. While financial aid can certainly help cover some of the costs, remember that all financial aid isn't created equal. Student loans need to be repaid. Your goal is to get the maximum amount of grant aid you possibly can. In the meantime, focus on your own savings and build the best college fund you can. And speaking of your savings, I want to address a related issue that often comes up, and that's how saving for college affects your retirement savings. It's definitely a balancing act, but you should be saving for retirement at the same time you're saving for college. There are no loans, grants, or scholarships for retirement as there is for college. If you wait, you'll miss out on years of potential tax-deferred growth in your retirement accounts, and it can be very hard to catch up later. One option is to allocate some funds toward retirement and some funds to college. If you absolutely can't save for both college and retirement at the same time, it's probably best to err for now on the side of saving for retirement. And that concludes our presentation. I hope you find the presentation helpful as you start building for your college fund. Contact me with any questions you may have. Thank you so much.